You ever see a grown man get locked out of his own studio on camera, and the footage gets posted by his enemy? Nah, this wasn't a diss track. This wasn't Twitter fingers. This wasn't I'm outside. This was colder than that. This was business. This was paperwork. This was power getting cut off, locks getting changed. Eviction papers go in public, and your biggest rival standing there.
Right now, he owes, I'm going to say in a short way, at least 80,000, if not 180,000.
They're smiling like, I told y'all I play chess, not checkers. Jim Jones thought he was just talking spicy on a podcast, just opinions, just vibes, but 50 Cent? 50 don't do feelings, 50 does strategy, and what happened next wasn't loud, it wasn't messy. It was surgical, a landlord partnership, security. Footage leak, affiliates applying pressure from every angle, even former friends piling on. This wasn't just a clapback, this was a financial smack. And by the end of it, Jim Jones wasn't arguing online. He was kicking in a door trying to get back inside his own studio. So how did we get here? How did a podcast opinion turn into eviction footage going viral, and why did 50 Cent take it that personal? Let's break it all the way down. It all really started months earlier, and at first, nobody thought it was that serious. December 2025, Jim Jones is sitting on the Let's Rap About It podcast with Mino, Fabulous, and Dave East. It's regular hip-hop conversation. Industry talk, documentaries, ownership, consent, just barbershop energy. Then Dave East.
Is it acceptable for someone to create a documentary about you without your approval? How would you feel if it happened to you?
Throws out a question that sounds simple but hits different. Is it cool for someone to make a documentary about you without your approval? That's
like
definitely not acceptable. It's facetious and petty.
Right. It's like somebody putting out your tape.
That's the spark, and the room doesn't hesitate. They agree fast, too fast. Jim Jones calls it fake. Says it's petty, says it's
without your permission.
and you're not an actual porno star.
And they do it.
The lighting wasn't good enough.
foul. Mino compares it to dropping someone's tape without consent. The energy shifts. It ain't playful no more. Now it feels pointed. Now it feels like somebody catching strays. And everybody watching knew exactly who that conversation was circling. Around 50 Cent had been producing documentaries, high-profile ones, controversial ones that didn't always make people look good, and whether Jim said his name or not, the internet already connected the dots. Here's the thing about 50 Cent, he listens, he watches, he doesn't always react right away. But he logs everything, every slick comment.
You just look bad. Oh, they caught me on a bad day? I wasn't even on my This they caught a weak one.
Every side eye, every I'm just saying. So while the podcast episode came and went, while clips circulated and fans debated in the comments, 50 wasn't tweeting.
The lighting is dark.
Damn.
You see that the lighting is dark?
Got me looking small
You still
out
put
here.
this on the internet?
Word up.
Paragraphs. He wasn't arguing. He was moving quiet. Fast forward to February 19th, 2026. Security footage pops up online. Grainy.
Wanted to be a dope documentary.
Yeah, it gotta be dope.
Showing who you are, what you've done,
Put out no bullshit
everything
on
you've
it.
accomplished. Like, a documentary is a big thing. Like, you don't want nobody doing a documentary about like trying to just make your whole character look weak. Like, that's petty behavior.
Real. It shows Jim Jones outside his podcast studio. The power's been cut. The locks have been changed. He's frustrated, heated. He ends up kicking in the door to get inside, and within minutes, that footage is everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, blogs, reaction channels, but here's the twist. It wasn't leaked by a random hater, it was posted by 50 Cent himself. Now the story flips. 50 claims he partnered with the building's landlord, says he has ownership stake in the property, says the eviction was legal, says rent wasn't being paid, and just like that, this isn't rap beef anymore, this is business paperwork. And paperwork hits different. Then the affiliates start moving, 50's business connections, the landlord, legal reps. Screenshots of eviction notices, phone recordings, financial claims. They start stacking receipts like it's tax season, and it wasn't just random trolls. Cameron, Jim's former Dipset teammate, even throws subtle shade online. The internet smells blood. They mock him for not being able to afford heat. They clown him for getting locked out. They turn kicking in the door into a meme. And the wild part, nobody threw a punch, nobody dropped a diss track, nobody met in the streets. This was a coordinated, financial, public pressure campaign. And that's what made it brutal, because when it's physical, you can fight back. When it's music, you can respond with bars. But when it's business, when it's contracts, ownership stakes, landlord partnerships, That's a different battlefield. People started asking, was this planned? Did 50 set this up after hearing that podcast? Or was Jim already behind on payments and just didn't know who he was playing with? The timeline makes it messy. 2 months between the podcast episode and the eviction footage. Long enough to plan, long enough to make calls, long enough to apply quiet pressure. And if you know 50's history, you know he plays long games. He's done it before. He's used bankruptcy strategically. He's bought up assets.
To build it, but he won't sign the lease. He's like, I don't like these terms. I want like 6 months of build out and ridiculous bullshit.
He's trolled opponents into bad positions. He doesn't just react, he calculates. Jim Jones, on the other hand, comes from a different energy. Harlem, diplomatic, immunity era, loud loyalty, street-coded respect. In that world, you handle disrespect head-on. But this wasn't street energy, this was corporate warfare.
Partnership agreement where half of what he's building now, his media, belongs to us. But he won't tell us how much he's making and doing all these things. So half of the content he's creating.
Wearing a hoodie. The public reaction split fast. Some people said 50 went too far, said leaking eviction footage is foul, said that's kicking a man when he's down. Others said Jim should have kept 50's name out his mouth. Said if you talk spicy about somebody who owns buildings, don't be shocked when you're outside. And then the deeper question came up in 2026. What really hurts more, getting dissed or getting exposed financially? Because hip-hop used to be about who had the better bars, now it's about who owns the masters. Who owns the building, who owns the cameras. Ownership is the new flex. And 50 made sure everybody saw who had leverage. Meanwhile, Jim tries to control the...
To me, it's worth very little to nothing. But if it works out for you, I just throw that in as a sweetener.
Narrative goes live, explains his side, says it's deeper than people think, says there were disputes, says he wasn't broke.
Now he owes, I'm going to say in a short way, at least 80,000, if not 180,000.
Says it wasn't what it looked like, but the footage already went viral. And once the internet sees you kicking in a door, that image sticks. Memes don't care about context. What makes this even crazier is the psychology behind it. The original conversation was about consent in documentaries, about putting out content without approval. And what did 50 do? He put out footage of Jim without approval. The irony was loud. Some fans said that was poetic, others said that was petty genius. But this situation exposes something bigger about the rap industry right now. It's not just artists versus artists anymore, it's brands versus brands. It's LLCs versus LLCs, it's credit scores and commercial leases and strategic partnerships. And when you step into that arena, you better know the rules. Because if your opponent owns the board, you're not playing the same game. The wildest part, this might not even be over. Situations like this don't die fast. Lawsuits could surface. More recordings could leak. More allies could switch sides. Because in hip-hop, loyalty is loud, but money talks louder. And maybe the real lesson here isn't about beef, it's about power. About how power looks different in 2026 than it did in 2006. Back then, you dropped a diss track, now you drop documents. Jim Jones thought he was giving an opinion, 50 Cent heard a challenge. And instead of arguing, he applied pressure where it hurts the most. Access to property, access to electricity, access to space. And once access is gone, pride don't pay the bills. So the question is, was this revenge? Or was this business? Was this petty? Or was this strategic? And in today's industry, is there even a difference anymore? Because one thing is clear. When you come for G-Unit, you better check who owns the building first. What happens when you poke a billionaire-minded rapper who built his brand off revenge, receipts, and ruthless strategy? Nah, forget that. Let me ask it like this. What happens when you're chilling on your podcast, laughing, debating, throwing slick comments about documentaries and legality, and the man you're low-key questioning is 50 Cent? Not just Curtis Jackson the rapper, not just the TV mogul. I'm talking about the petty king, the I'll buy your block just to evict you type energy. The dude who doesn't argue back, he investigates back. The kind of guy who hears you say one little slick sentence and instead of tweeting, he pulls paperwork. Instead of dissing, he audits. Instead of clapping back, he flips the entire narrative and makes you the headline. What started as casual podcast talk turned into landlord phone calls, alleged unpaid rent, Instagram humiliation, diss freestyles over original beats, and a chess move so cold fans had to replay it twice just to believe it. This wasn't just rap beef, this was corporate warfare and designer sneakers. And by the end of this story, you're going to see exactly how one podcast conversation turned into a public demolition. and why going at 50 Cent in 2025 might be the riskiest move in hip-hop culture. It all began in what felt like a normal hip-hop discussion. Jim Jones and the Let's Rap About It crew were doing what podcasts do best, talking. The topic, documentaries, the ethics of them, the legality. Whether certain stories cross lines when it comes to defamation, or using someone's likeness without permission, Fabulous chimed in, raising eyebrows about how far a documentary can go before it turns into a lawsuit waiting to happen. It didn't sound like screaming, it didn't sound like war. It sounded like barbershop talk with microphones. But here's the thing about today's internet, subtlety dies fast. If it even feels like you're talking about somebody, the blogs are running with it before you finish your sentence. Some listeners believed they were indirectly referencing
Oh nah, this is getting disrespectful and hilarious at the same time.
50 Cent's documentary moves. Others argued it was just a broad industry conversation. Nino later jumped on Instagram to clarify that his comments
I just want to know, how did 50 Cent get access to the camera? Because it's giving Big Brother.
were general, not a direct shot at 50. But once social media grabs a clip, context disappears. And by the time that clarification hit timelines, 50 had already seen the original segment. And if you know anything about 50, you know he doesn't treat maybe disrespect lightly. See, most artists respond emotionally, they tweet, they rant, they go live. But 50? He responds strategically. The moment he felt questioned, he didn't argue about documentaries. He didn't debate legality, he went straight for credibility. He labeled the entire podcast crew squatters, called them bums, alleged they owed up to $250. Zero in unpaid rent for the very studio they were recording in. $250,000, that number alone was enough to flip the internet upside down. Now pause for a second, think about how fast the narrative changed. 1 minute. It's about whether documentaries are ethical. The next minute, it's about whether the hosts can even pay rent. That's not a clapback, that's a redirect. 50 reposted their clip on Instagram with captions full of sarcasm and laughing emojis. He joked about buying the studio outright, basically saying, "You questioning my business? I might just own yours." That's psychological warfare because in hip-hop, image is everything. The second somebody questions your financial stability, the whole aura shifts. Mino wasn't having it though. He fired back
The same outfit from the viral clip that started showing off martial art moves
with personal insults. On Instagram, he made it clear that if it's smoke, it's smoke. And that's the moment things crossed from debate into beef territory. Because once you challenge 50 publicly, you're not just arguing with a rapper, you're challenging someone who built a brand on calculated
That's probably the smartest way to respond when 50 Cent is trolling you. Because once 50
revenge, and by Christmas Day 2025, the tension escalated. The Let's Rap About It crew dropped what they called a squatter rights freestyle. They dissed 50 over his
troll back without looking emotional, yeah.
own beats, bold, entertaining, definitely viral worthy. Comment sections were going crazy, but here's the problem: when you diss someone who thrives on strategy, you better be prepared for phase 2. And phase 2 was something nobody saw coming. Instead of dropping a diss track, instead of going live, instead of typing another caption, 50 went straight to the landlord. Yes, the actual landlord of the building where Jim Jones and the podcast crew recorded. In a move fans later described as diabolical, he recorded a phone call with the building owner. The landlord's name was Sam, and Sam had stories. When 50 shared that audio clip, the game changed. In the recording, Sam spoke about how the business relationship with the tenants had deteriorated. He mentioned unpaid rent, financial tension, a situation that had become unsustainable. Whether every detail was black and white truth or layered with perspective almost didn't matter. The damage was already done because now the narrative wasn't rumor, it was audio. The internet exploded, blogs reposted the clip, reaction channels dissected every second. Some fans praised 50's genius, others called it messy and over the top. But everyone agreed, this was next level petty. This wasn't just rap beef anymore. This was corporate chess. And here's what makes it wild: 50 didn't yell, he didn't sound emotional. He
was not a rapper then.
Right.
He was your man, like on the side, like on the side, just he was not a rapper at all.
Right.
sounded calm, calculated, like a CEO reviewing numbers. That calm delivery made it even colder. It felt intentional, like he knew exactly how this would play out. Because once the public hears $250,000 unpaid rent and landlord audio, the conversation shifts.
And I'm looking and I'm going, oh, he having a moment. That's the Lloyd Banks. It's Lloyd Banks thing.
Permanently. Suddenly, Jim Jones and the crew weren't debating documentaries. They were defending their legitimacy. That's the power of narrative control. Whoever controls the story controls the spotlight, and 50 is a master at spotlight manipulation. He flipped from defense to offense in one move. This whole situation became a case study in how hip-hop beef has
Watch to see how he responds. And then when you see, he like, oh, he really like that.
evolved. Back in the day, beef meant disc records, interviews, maybe a heated radio moment. Now, it's business documents, lease agreements, recorded phone calls. It's about exposure instead of punches. 50 basically said, "You want to question my integrity? Cool, let's put yours under a microscope," and that's what makes him dangerous. He doesn't just respond, he escalates intelligently, he finds leverage. He applies pressure where it hurts most, reputation. Meanwhile, the internet was split. Some people argued that the podcast hosts were simply engaging in free speech and industry critique. Others believed they should have known better than to indirectly question someone as powerful and strategic as 50 Cent, because let's be honest, this isn't his first rodeo. 50 has built an entire second career off turning beef into marketing fuel, but deeper than the entertainment value was a bigger lesson. In today's content-driven world, every word can have consequences. Podcast culture makes people comfortable. You start talking freely, thinking it's just dialogue. But when your just dialogue involves someone with resources, influence, and a track record of retaliation, things can spiral fast. And here's the real twist. Whether the rent allegations were fully accurate or exaggerated became almost secondary. Perception is powerful. Once doubt enters the chat, it spreads like wildfire. And in the court of public opinion, perception often matters more than paperwork. The situation also highlighted something else: power dynamics in modern hip-hop. There's a difference between arguing with another artist and arguing with a mogul who owns television shows, production companies, and has relationships in corporate spaces. When that person decides to apply pressure, it's not just social media, it's leverage. By the time the dust began settling, one thing was crystal clear. This was never just about a documentary, it was about dominance, it was about showing that questioning 50 publicly comes with consequences. It was a demonstration of influence. And maybe that's the scariest part. 50 made it look easy: a repost here, an audio clip there, a few captions with laughing emojis, no long explanations, no emotional breakdowns, just moves, strategic, surgical moves. So the question becomes, was it worth it? Was the initial podcast conversation worth triggering a corporate-level response? In an era where clout can be monetized and controversy brings views, maybe the gamble felt necessary, but when you're dealing with someone who thrives on flipping narratives, the gamble can backfire. This saga is bigger than just personalities. It's about how media, power, and ego collide in the digital age. It's about how fast a conversation can turn into a crisis. And it's about how one calculated individual can redirect an entire narrative in less than 24 hours. At the end of the day, this wasn't just another hip-hop beef story, it was a reminder that in 2025, battles aren't just fought with bars. They're fought with business records, with leverage, with receipts, and when the smoke clears, the one holding the evidence usually holds the power. So if there's one takeaway from this entire situation, it's this: before you question a man who built his empire on strategy, make sure your own house is solid. Because he might not respond with a diss track, he might respond with proof. And in today's world, proof hits harder than any punchline ever could.